Thank you very much, Jemedari. I think you did a good job in introducing my panel, but I would just like to have them introduce themselves, you know, by just mentioning one of the unique things that they're currently doing that is connected to the topic of our discussion today. So can I begin with Labdi? Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you feeling? You're good? All right, so my name is Labdi Ommes. I'm a performing artist. I play a traditional instrument, which is a bit awkward for this current time, being that I'm a bit young, hopefully. I hope I look young. And that particular instrument is called an orutu. It was previously a taboo for women to play, and that's why I'm here today. Yes.
Thank you very much. Makofi yake? Yeah, Rab.
Yes, I'm Rab Bakari. Based in Accra, Ghana now, but I'm originally from New York City. And I worked for Universal Music Group for many, many years, working through labels like Def Jam, Interscope Music, and then finally I was high in echelon of executives doing e-commerce, making sure that people get their music through streaming and digital downloads. And one of the last things I did at Universal Music Group was incorporate Capitol Records from EMI into the Universal Music Group fold. But I'm also known for digging back into the past in Ghana, which is my other half, and diving into a sound called High Life and combining it with the modern music of the 90s and the 2000s, which is called rap music, hip hop. And we created something called Hip Life. And it gave the definition of modern music in Ghana right now. So at this point, I created a company called MixerPot. And what I do is I book artists from urban African areas, such as Nairobi, and bring them to North America to being part of festivals, collaboration with American artists, and such.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Brilliant. I think I bookmarked the question. I bookmarked the conversation around High Life, and we'll be coming back to that. But just before that, I have my Mganga Mkuu.
Yeah, my name is Makadem, and I think I'm very relevant in this topic because I do contemporary African music, which basically means I'm using the past now. And like Labdi, I also play an instrument that Daniel Onyango refuses to call a traditional instrument. He says Nyatiti is not traditional, it's classical. I wonder what that means. Labdi, maybe you should stop saying what is traditional, it's classical.
Doesn't matter what its name is.
Anyway, so my Nyatiti is not traditional Luo Nyatiti, the way I play it. I play it in my own way. I play it very, very futuristic. I've done lots of collaborations with international DJs. And yeah, that actually is very relevant. So thank you.
Once again, give him a round of applause. Thank you. I think we all gathered here for a very simple question, which is the future of music in Eastern Africa in its past? And to open up this conversation, I'll probably throw this question to Labdi. And it's perhaps, you know, very direct, like to ask, is Afrofusion dead?
Is Afrofusion dead?
Yeah.
What is Afrofusion? You know, it's different for many people.
Exactly. So, Makadem, take us to what is Afrofusion and how Afrofusion as a sound relates to the future of music from around East Africa.
Yeah, Afrofusion as a name itself is dead, but not as a music. And the reason, and I'm part of the people who killed it. We really strangled it. We refused the name. And each artist, because it began around 2004, 2005, and we totally refused to use the word, with each artist wanting to call their music their own name. And so we killed the name, not knowing that actually everything starts with a name. If something is nameless, nobody wants it. But in terms of the musicians doing that kind of music, we've grown stronger, and we have many, many other artists coming in. The problem is we are nameless.
Labdi, why do you think Makadem says that we're nameless?
I personally have had a bit of a problem with that whole conversation about naming. And I think one of the reasons why artists refuse the name Afrofusion is because you see Ankara, you put Afro. If you put Ankara on a radio, it becomes an Afro radio. So a lot of people have refused to be associated with westernized colloquialisms of words. So, like, I personally call my music Ohangla. I really don't care what anyone else says. It's not Afro jazz. It's not, because we particularly don't want to be borrowing names from places that the music is not inspired from. Yeah? So that's why I think.
Does this speak something about our lack of identity in terms of, our lack of identity as Kenya? Is there something like Kenyan music?
I don't think we lack identity. I think other people's misunderstanding of our music is what is referred to as lack of identity. We have identity. We have our own music. If you look at people's playlists, I keep on saying, you will see the music they listen to is inspired by Kenyan. A lot of it is Kenyan. It's not what you listen to on the radio. So I don't think we particularly lack identity. Maybe we're not as popular as Nigerian music, but we do have identity. Yeah.
Bakari, do you think that Kenya has a musical identity from where you sit from the outside?
Looking from the outside, Kenya as nationally, internally, yes, there are different identities within Kenya. And the best example I can give, in the United States, we have different styles of music. So you have Zydeco, you have bluegrass, you have hip-hop, you have jazz, you have soul, you have funk, you have grunge. But for some reason, people outside the United States call all of that country music. They still call it American music. It's American music. So yes, Kenya has their music, but nationally, maybe in a popular sense, in a pop sense, there's no known Kenyan national music, which is, to me, it's good, because then it gives chances for the different internal things within the nation of Republic of Kenya for things to bubble up, bubble down, then the next one bubbles up, bubbles down. It doesn't have to be a pan-Kenyan sound. So, yeah.
Yeah, and in that space, Makadem, you've been working on Benga Beat. What inspires you to start to work on this sound, call it Benga Beat, and what actually really defines it between, across the border? What defines it as Benga Beat?
Benga, first of all, is music that emerged in the 50s from the Luoland area, whereby the young people back then decided to take the orutu and play it in the guitar. And so they took the past and brought it into the future. And to me, that is how music is done. You take your past and bring it and move around with it. Yeah, because it's really hard to say you're inventing something. So we have Benga, which developed, and it was actually, it went national. Not that all communities in Kenya took it, but some major communities actually took it and have actually maintained it, and it's actually popular. Because in Kenya, I don't know if we all know that Kenya actually has what I personally call vernacular pop, which is pop that is just popular within a particular community. And it has its celebrities, and they're working hard, and they're making their money, and it's big. So when we talk about Afrofusion and how we bring music from the past into the present or into the future, Benga plays that role, because Benga tended to bring a common beat that was bigger than all the rest in Kenya. Because like he says, like Rabbi says, we have different types of genres of music in Kenya, yes. But Benga surpassed most of them, including the ones that are so big at the coast, which are also very formidable. So to me, Benga would have been one of the best to use. And of course, we know there's some people who have worked hard to bring it. Labdi just talked about Ohangla. There are two kinds of Ohangla, in my opinion, which is a fact anyway. It's not just my opinion. There's the traditional Ohangla, and there's the new Ohangla. The new Ohangla is again another group of young musicians from the lakeside, from the Luoland, who apparently found the Benga stuck. And so they took it to the keyboard. because they're young. Young people always are the ones who reinvent themselves and move ahead. Just like Benga began in the 50s, they were young people. They took it from traditional instrument and put it in the new guitar that they had just acquired. And now we have another group that began in the around 2000, 2001 there, if not 99, and they took the music back to the keyboard and they removed the guitar and the bass and the drum and brought a traditional percussion. And the beat is actually some Caribbean beat, but it has reinvented Benga. To me, Ohangla that we play in the club nowadays that is popular with the Luo is actually the new Benga. It's not really different from Benga, it's just new. Because if you try things that I do, I've taken 2 cover versions from popular Luo songs and done them in a whole live band, and what you get is just Benga. It's nothing like, it's really another genre of music. So, to me, Benga is there, it's just that it's being used as each community has decided to target their own people. And what we say that we don't have a common beat is because we've chosen not to have a common beat. And to me, the people to blame are the artists themselves, and the worst to blame are the producers. Why? Because if you talk about Nigeria having one national look, it's because they enhance what is there. For example, when Ohangla emerged, and Tony Nyadundo was the first to record it, and all the other artists went doing the same thing, and so it became a common thing, and it took over. It has actually murdered the so-called older Benga amongst the Luo. It's not there anymore. There's Rumba and there's Ohangla amongst the Luo. It's very hard to get Luos going for Benga. It's very, very hard. It happens with the Kambas, the Kikuyus, and the Kalenjins. But the Luo is the Luo Rumba and the Luo Hangla. So, to have a common beat means people have to support it. Not what we do in Kenya, whereby Ogopa DJs does a very nice beat and Caliph decides to counter that with another one. You will never go, because even if one artist rises, for example, right now, everybody talks about Sauti Sol, but Sauti Sol is not Kenya. That is a Sauti Sol success. For Kenya to take over, Sauti Sol cannot do that. Sauti Sol needs another 100 Sauti Sols. The same thing that Nigeria has done here. It's not one Nigerian artist or 10 we are listening to here. We're listening to hundreds. Sometimes I even wonder, ask, who is that? Who is that? Because they just keep popping up. So you cannot overtake a market when you don't have a common beat. It will never happen. And that goes to the producers themselves. Stop fighting a new beat that has emerged that is catchy. Put in your signature and maintain it. The Bongo guys are doing it. You can see that Diamond is not very different with somebody there. There's always something common about them. The Congolese. So, South Africans too. So our problem is we don't want, we feel like if I do a song that is closer to Labdi's, everybody's going to laugh at me that I'm copying Labdi. So I distance myself. So I plan to shoot her in the leg, not knowing that I'm actually shooting mine.
Exactly. This is, actually in this conversation, I'm wondering, how many people in the group understand what's Benga? Okay, quite a number here. But I'd like to first ask, just like some 5 random people, could you tell us what was the first Kenyan music that you sort of listened to? And this is I'm just wanting to hear, like, where do we begin? When we start to say, like, okay, yeah, when you first heard music, what did you listen to?
Kamaru.
What's Kamaru?
I think Kamaru is very traditional. It's not really Benga.
Let me just do a quick random sample here.
The Hoodie Boys.
The Hoodie Boys. That was the first music that you listened to? Yeah. What year was that?
It was just 90s. It's because of my dad.
How would you call the Hoodie Boys? The sound that...
I think that's what Ketable did, what we call the funky hits. Those were like the new crop of artists we call urban nowadays back then.
What is the first Kenyan music that you listen to?
I was Afrofusion.
Afrofusion.
Makadem, Abi, yeah, those guys. Back in 2002, 3 there.
That's the time of Kikwetu, at around that time. Okay, what was the first music that you listened to?
I listened to Omutibo.
The one that is performed at music festivals.
I think most music festivals in Kenya have a variety, a mix, so we can't really tell, but mostly it's Afrofusion in music festivals. We have pop Kenyan music, so.
A bit of folk as well.
A bit of
Yeah.
folk.
But I'd like to go back to rap, and I understand that in Ghana they're on the 5th generation of high life. The 5th generation of high life. Like, high life has progressed over 5 generations. And I would like him to take us on a quick journey of what this progression has been, and what is the outcome of there having been unity and commonality and progressively exploring the high life sound.
High life in the Republic of Ghana, everybody, it's funny because they throw that word around, traditional, classical, what's what. But the thing with high life is it's always been a fusion of people coming to the shores of Ghana through the Atlantic Ocean and adding their instrument or their sound. So yes, Ghana, we used to blow something called abeng. Abeng is a horn, but sometimes it was like a ram's horn or something like that. But when the Europeans brought the trumpet, they adapted that trumpet and played the 5/4 rhythms or whatever and adapted it. Same thing with the guitar. Like Akan culture, like the Ashanti people, the Fanti, the Brong, their traditional string instruments has totally disappeared because they've been replaced by the guitar. The drums are still there. The drums is always part of most West African societies. But the string instruments are Europeans' importation. But they took those European instruments and adapted them, and then they created something called high life. The high life is something the upper class people, the ballroom music, that's the best way I can put it, is the ballroom music that they listen to. So in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, on the British colonial administration, they had these balls, and they would put bands together, and the British colonials would say, play this type of rhythm so we can do a type of two-step dance or waltz, and that's how high life came about. Out of palm wine music, when you're drinking natural distilled liquors, someone sings a song, someone strums a string instrument, then something comes out of that. So high life developed. Then it got to the 1990s when all the teenagers was listening to American music. See, there's always that American factor going back from the 30s, from Louis Armstrong and the jazz, then the big bands, then later the bebop jazz, then the funk, then the soul. It's always that American factor in all countries. I don't care if it's Japan or Kenya. So in the 1990s, everybody's listening to rap music, which was born out of New York City, the city I come from. And in this 4th generation, we had to find out how to get to people who really didn't speak English and really didn't understand the slang of New York or the rhythms or the racial struggles of America. So we had to create something called hip life. We combined high life with hip hop, and we basing it on the language, the cadence of rhythm, and the way guitars are played. So there's many ethnic groups in Ghana. There's not no one ethnic group. It's just like Kenya. So you pick different ways they did their traditional things and incorporated it into a modern boom bap, kick snare, hi-hat, sampled culture sound. You guys are calling it Afrofusion. He refuses to call that, but it was some type of fusion going on. And it defined the modern sound of Ghana to get ready for the 21st century. And that's what we did. I can go on and on and on, but that's where we're at now, where Ghana has a distinct sound, where Nigeria took a look at what we were doing, because when we did the high life and the hip life in Ghana, Nigeria was still stuck in their very traditional ethnocentric type of rhythms. So there.
So you say that the success of high life in Ghana influenced the Nigerians to actually find a sound for themselves?
Yeah, because in the 70s, Ghana had high life, so the Nigerian musicians started playing with Ghanaian bands. Then getting away from that, what we call tribalism, they said, let's get a common sound. So a different ethnic group, a Yoruba plays with an Igbo, and the Igbo plays with somebody, Itikiri, and they created their version of high life, copying off Ghana. 20, 25 years later, or 30 years later, the same thing happened with hip life. So the Nigerians was looking at what we were doing with hip life in the 90s, and since they have a bigger population, a bigger diaspora spread amongst the world, they took it and ran with it. Now you have the Nigerian pop sound that you know. Yeah.
I have a question that is related to actually identity and diaspora markets.
Yes.
And that question is with regards to how is identity, diaspora markets, and connected to the success of West African music in the diaspora?
You directing it to me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll speak from a Kenyan point of view because I'm looking outside, looking in. I realize that Kenyans do not activate their diaspora. Like, someone told me that a Kenyan thinks in tribe before nation, but from what I can't believe that, but he's laughing, but I can't believe that, but they think tribe before nation, where in other places they think nation before tribe. And Kenyan artists, music, they need to activate their diaspora, as Nigerians have done, as South Africans have done back in the 80s behind apartheid. There has to be some type of movement for you, the Kenyan, or the Tanzanian, or anybody else. I see the Ethiopians, they do it all the time. They activate their diaspora, and they create a movement, and there's a sound, and they say, we're going to sell our sound. We're not converting our sound to anything. We're going to speak our language. We're going to keep our cadence, our rhythms, and everything. Kenyans need to activate diaspora. For what I know, Kenyans are all over the place, from Saudi Arabia to Australia to California and United States. And it's very important. Then so you have a population of 140, 150 million Nigerians inside the borders of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Now they're activating their diaspora. So when I go to Nigerian parties in New York or Washington, D.C., it doesn't matter what ethnic group they are, they're all Nigerians, and they're just propagating their music. They're talking about their 21st century sound. Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda needs to do the same thing. Yeah.
Thank you very much for putting it so clearly. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the pleasure of introducing Jinku.
Hi.
Hey, Jinku, you could introduce yourself. And
hello, my name is Jinku, and I'm a DJ producer, and I produce for East African Wave. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, picking up from where he left, and knowing that part of connecting the past and the future also includes online, online audiences and that kind of stuff. Perhaps it would be an interesting thing to describe what is the production and distribution ethic around Earwave, and how that connects to the to the markets whether in the diaspora and other places that are looking for what is new and hip coming out of Nairobi.
One of the things that we do is we have a very strong online community, so we use a lot of social media and platforms such as Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube. And the whole thing about that is we try to make our music as accessible as possible. Because one of the things that we noticed was when we were trying to find this Kenyan music online and things like that, it's quite hard to dig through the backlog of old Kenyan music. And we feel that sampling also plays a very large part in creating a new identity with a new sound. Like, for example, you have from Brazil, you have the Bill funk that was pushed and cultivated by a producer like Sango. And now there is this whole big Bill funk movement. Then you have genres such as Mumbatone that's getting the old South American rhythms and bringing them together. Then there are things such as from South America, Mexico, things like tree funk, where people are getting all these really old South American rhythms and traditions and songs and incorporating them into the new modern sounds of music such as house, such as hip-hop, such as trap, and all combining that. So I feel that having that identity and, as he said, with the hip life, incorporating all those different cultures, that's a new way for people to consume the music, a new way for the youth to consume the music. So as Earwave, that's our philosophy, is we try to have our music as accessible online as much as possible.
Yeah, and then, connected to that is, we've been talking about, okay, making music and it referencing to a past. In the context of EA Wave, what would you say is there a past that you reference to? What does that past look like? What does that past sound like? Is it there? Is it not there? What really informs, what inspires your ecosystem? What is, what is the reference point of the work that you're putting out there?
Personally, for me, I would say probably the 80s bands, around 80s, 90s, because that's around my age frame, and those are the records my parents were playing. And also those are the records that are very easily accessible on YouTube. So there are things such as guitar sounds, guitar plucks, and benga music, and those are the things that I try to take, such as the drum patterns and drum rhythms, then learn from them or sample them, and then now use them in my music. So that's what I do.
Thank you very much. This is to you, Labdi. While all this is happening, we all have attempts to borrow, touch, sample, paste, and all that kind of stuff. But why has it been difficult for us to have a unified sort of sound, or like one that even the Ugandans could borrow, like the Nigerians did with the gun, with High Life?
I personally think that we're privileged that we don't have a unified sound, in all honesty, because we have let me say this, let me give us all an assignment. For those who haven't listened to, let's say just take 4 of the top most, just take 4 tribes and listen to the music that they produce. It's very different, and it all has different significant sounds. And to be honest, I think it would be very difficult to mash up all those sounds and create one single one. I know one will definitely precede and overshadow all the others, but it's not a dream of mine to have one unified sound. We have too much to offer in Kenya. Yeah.
Jinku, what do you think about a unified or non-unified sound for Kenya?
I don't think Nairobi should have a unified sound, but it should have a unified identity. For example, knowing these tribes, if someone listens to it, they'd be like, okay, that's from Kenya, but then within that sound, there are very many sub-genres, yeah? I think having one sound would dilute the cultural diversity that we have here. And also, the same thing is also in South Africa. They have as many tribes as us, but when you go deeper into it, you notice that each tribe has a different sound. Like, you can tell house music from Cape Town, house music from Johannesburg, house music from Durban, just because of the communities that live within those areas. So I think that's how Nairobi should be, that each area has a unique identity, but all under the blanket sound of Kenya.
Thank you very much. I'm going to take a few questions from the audience in a few, but before I do that, I really actually want to hear from Labdi's point of view, what she feels is the new role of the DJ in terms of connecting the future and the past.
That's an amazing question, actually. I've been battling it for a while now. Where does the DJ normally lie? Mostly. Their influences in the club and in social settings and in concerts and all these things. I think the role of the Kenyan DJ is to play Kenyan music. The question is, whose role is it to produce? It's the producer's role. So I feel a lot of producers not only have the responsibility to fuse traditional, I'll say traditional just to make it simpler, but yeah, Makadem, is that okay? Okay, yeah. So they can fuse traditional sound with the current sound, like ear wave, they do that a lot. You do gunkeke, is it? Yes, you see? So yeah, they fuse that, and then now with the rest of the world, like the music that everyone else plays, like Niger music, just mix, so that there can be awareness of the Kenyan music. You can go to a club a whole night, you will not hear a single Kenyan song. And that's a problem for a lot of people. For me, it's a problem. So I think our DJs can really help with that by mixing. Like we have DJ Shock, we have a couple of DJs, Kamaru out there, you know, and I know a lot of them mix Kenyan sound with contemporary sound. So if you're a DJ out there, I think that's what you can do for us. Yes.
Jinku, on the same front, what do you think is the emerging role of the DJ? Because my friend here, Makadem, always argues that the role is changing.
I don't think a DJ's role has changed. A DJ's role is to play good music, but a DJ's role is also to be a huge proponent for culture. In various countries, you can see things such as Afrobeat has been pushed largely because the Nigerian DJs and the audience play their music. Like even when you go to a club, even when you meet the diaspora outside, their DJs are still playing their local music because they have that very strong heritage and very strong culture. And I think that's what a DJ should do also, because a DJ's link is to push the music further. That's our role, and our role has always remained the same. I just think it's how proud we are of our own sound. Yeah.
Makadem, you argue that the role of the DJ has been changing. Jinku doesn't seem to agree with you. How would you respond to that?
Jinku actually says it in his own story, the things he does. And Jinku is one of the DJs I'm really proud of in Kenya. Why? He even says a DJ has a cultural role to play. And you see, Jinku is a DJ producer. The DJ producers are artists, so they think different from the normal club banger DJ we have in Kenya, who think that their work is just to play what they like, and if they don't like it, it should go and hang, and they can actually tell you off that we will never play that because it doesn't sound like Nigerian sound, so we don't like it. They forget that they have another role, which I always call the political role, whereby who are you and what are you fronting? At the end of the day, if you're fronting Nigerian music because you're being paid, are you forgetting that you're supposed to be a flag bearer of Kenya when you're playing? So those are some of the things that I say the new DJ, the DJ producer has come to change. And you wait and see in the next 5 or so years, when we get more DJ producers in this country doing what he's doing, we're going to have an identity, and we're going to have our music played even in the diaspora. You talked about Kenyan diaspora having not activated. The thing with, because I travel a lot, the thing with our Kenyan diaspora is they listen to two kind of songs. Actually, it's one beat, the club beat. It's just that in Kenya, people, when you talk about the club beat, they think you're only talking about the youthful urban. But we have two types of club beats here. There's the vernacular beat, which is also club, the benga, the mugidi, and the ohanglas. Those are also club. Those ones get invited to the diaspora. But now who goes? The Luo will invite their Luo. That's why we think tribal first, not Kenya. So the Luo will invite their ohangla. The Kikuyu will invite theirs. It's largely those two, first of all. Those are the ones actually who go abroad, in the US and in Europe. The reason why the young urban pop artist or commercial has been crowned Kenyan musician is because they cut across. They don't target their tribes. But you see, most of their songs have no root. So as much as the diaspora wants it, to some point, it does not really bring that Kenyanness, because it's so new. It's nice, yes, but it's so new, it doesn't have any rooting, because we have, our producers have failed to put something to make it Kenya. Their argument is, as long as it is done in Kenya, it's Kenyan. But just like he says, he's a producer and he's a DJ. He's bringing something to make it Kenyan. Are you going to put Oruto? Are you going to put some benga guitar or the drum or something? And that is how we'll create our own. And by the issue of saying we need one sound doesn't mean we kill the others. There's always one that will support surpass the others. You've just said how many are in the US. But when you ask many people what is American music, they tend to think it's R&B and hip-hop or rock and country. Yeah, because those are the ones that have gone on top. So what we need is one that goes on top. You agree South Africa has so many, even more than Kenya, but there are some that are on top that immediately it's sung. Even if a Kenyan does a song, they say, oh, that looks South African.
So, Rob, you have something to say?
Based on that, I can give my experience. Growing up in New York City, I was the DJ producer. And because we DJ producers did what we did in the 80s and 1990s, it is why the world knows hip-hop. We went back into the past and went to our mothers and fathers' LPs and vinyl records and discovered sounds. I discovered John Coltrane. I discovered blues music by trying to put it into the latest rap sound and stuff. So I was a DJ producer for many years. I worked with Wu-Tang Clan, Mary J. Blige, Queen Latifah. I did like production. That's what I did. That's how I came up. And then I went back home on a vacation to go see my mother's side of the family in Ghana, and then I realized they were doing the same thing they were doing in New York. So I stayed in Ghana and created that whole sound. This time, digging back into the Ghanaian past, the Ghanaian music. And as a DJ, my job was to break new music. Most DJs, 80% of the DJs here do not break new music. So back in New York, we never cared about where the club or venue was at. We followed the DJ. Because the DJ, and you can read about it online, these famous DJs from America back in the past. And now you have these electronica, EDM DJs that people follow the DJs no matter where they perform. So you have your David Guettas and Tiesto and Calvin Harris. They're now DJ producers, and as you call them, they're artists in their own right now. So the DJ is very important. So I'm looking for Kenyan DJs that are producers to bring that sound, like I've brought Black Coffee to the United States. DJ Mafofisa from South Africa, I brought them because they have a distinct sound. Black Motion, they have a distinct sound when they're DJing and playing those big drums and stuff. So the DJ is very important, but I can't really identify a DJ here in Nairobi. The Bongo Flavor people in Dar es Salaam identified them like 20 years ago. So I'm just waiting to see what's happening here.
Exactly. There's a missed opportunity here, but I think we're all getting back to it. Now I'm going to take 3 questions from the audience. Yeah, there's actually a microphone right there. We're going towards the closure because we need to spend time wisely for the next program. So any questions from the audience?
My name is Meta. I have been here for 15, 16, 17 years, worked with music also. I get a lot from when I speak to young people who first they'll say Karibu Kenya with an American accent on their Swahili. And then they will say, well, I grew up with a British curriculum. I learned how to play the violin. I grew up with a YouTube, and that's my music education. I don't even know what a nyatiti looks like, and don't bring me the Sukuti beat. And I'd just like to hear what you say to them, what your answer would be, because I have no question about the validity of a strong identity and authentic, strong cultural heritage, but I would like to hear your opinion on that.
Every time I introduce myself as a musician, I have to explain what exactly I do, and it's a real problem. I feel my cause on this planet as a musician is to popularize the craft, and I'll use traditional once again, but the Urutu for me, in my case. Because you'll find a lot of people who'll ask you, is it like a violin? It's not like a violin. How can it possibly be like a violin? It's an Urutu. So, and to those people who don't understand a lot of these other things, I feel it's sad that let me say 80% of Kenyans wouldn't even know what a nyatiti looks like. Because they see an Urutu, they say, oh, you play the nyatiti. I'm saying, how do you know? You know a violin, you can tell a cello from a viola, but you cannot tell an Urutu from a nyatiti. 2 very different things. I think it's our cause to ensure that these instruments and this music is popularized. And I feel that I'm here to do that by myself with other people. Yes. Have I answered your question?
I think also there is, it's like someone trying to refuse themselves, because the same people who say, I don't know nyatiti, I don't know this and that, things that are very Kenyan, are the same people who really feel bad if you didn't know some American band or does not have certain app in your phone. And then you wonder, how come they accept that they live in Kenya, they don't know Rutu, but then you're so backward that you don't have that app or you have no idea about that app. So it's just some kind of self-rejection, thinking that, because I've seen, there's a time I was taking an Uber from Lavington to Sippers in Hurlingham. And when I moved the stuff, the Uber driver said, "You're not going to put those stuff on my chair." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because you can't put such stuff on a car chair. Those chairs are clean." Then I told him, "Listen, what I'm going to do there is based on this. This is how I earn my money. And I keep them properly. Look at the bag where that nyatiti is. Look at the bag where those," because the drums also had the bags. And then I told him, "If you don't want to carry them, then I call another Uber." And then he went round and round and toned down. Now, my point is, most Kenyans actually look at the traditional instruments as nothing. You know, I've had that problem in buses when I was doing my East Africa Nyatiti tour. They want like to just throw it or whatever, yet when they see the guitar, they want to carry it humbly. So it is a mentality which I resist to say colonial mentality, because it's just some kind of mentality we have created whereby we refuse our own things, the way we refuse to speak our vernacular. If you write Swahili on Facebook with bad grammar, many a times nobody's going to correct you. Try that with English. The whole of your wall will come down. And these are the same people who will tell you, this is not a British colonial, blah, 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 blah. But we have this thing that anything that is Western that we know is better than anything that is our own. So it's based on that. It has nothing to do with they don't know the Nyatiti or the Urutu. They just don't want to know. You know.
Thank you very much. Jinku, would you like to add something?
To be honest, I think the whole point is having a formal educational system to teach people about the instruments. Because when the country used to have a music system, and music and arts was removed from our curriculum, and back then, like, traditional instruments was part of the curriculum. So the music teacher would teach you the scales for African instruments, the names, how to identify them. And I think by removing that important part from our education system, you have children who have grown up not knowing these things. So it's not because they don't appreciate culture, it's because they've not been cultivated to appreciate culture. So that's one of the biggest problems. So I think having a formal educational system teaching traditional instruments and traditional rhythms would play a really large part in having a Renaissance period, the way we use that in our music today. Yeah.
We still have the national drama festivals, and they've maintained it in the past. They've totally refused to come today. They want you that the time that I'm going to play the Nyatiti, I shouldn't dress like this. I should be dressed in raffia, almost naked, painted my face. You know that mganga mkuu, that idea. That's how the national drama thinks. And that's what they're putting in the students. And that is what must stop first. They try to put it in a Kenyan youth that is an outdated instrument. It's traditional. It does not play anything beyond traditional. But what they don't know is an instrument is just an instrument. How do you use it? You know, I've become very popular with DJs who are doing electronic music and house music. Why? Because the Nyatiti is actually a trance instrument. It creates that loop, the same loop they play. So it actually, and it has very nice, distinctive sounds that they're actually looking for. So most DJs are now looking for me. Can you play for me something? I'm sent for beats. Can you put what key is in it? You know, they even send you money. Can you do for me? Can you get me Maasai? There's a DJ from Ivory Coast in Germany who told me, please get me Maasais. And he even sent me money. Can you pay them? I want this. So we have to start looking at things in a different way. The education system has to change. Stop looking at it that when you're doing an Orutu or Nyatiti or Isukuti or the Ohangla drums, you must strip naked and put on leaves.
Thank you. Let me take one last question here because I'm told we're time bad.
First is how do you classify a sound? For example, we've had issues in, for example, gospel music. So we have, if you hear a certain beat, you're like, okay, that's not gospel, or this is gospel. What classifies a beat? You know, like how do you tell this is gospel, this is secular, this is, you know, like that? So does it mean that if I'm a gospel musician, I can't use this kind of beat because it is secular? And what says that it's secular? All right? Is it the drum patterns, or what is it? And then about having the common sound. Having a common sound, do we talk about how we present the music? Like we have rap, we have singing, or is it the beats? All right? Yeah, those were...
I think like the same way you can tell a house beat from a hip-hop beat, every genre has like a specific set of rules or a specific set of sounds. So how people can differentiate the different types of sounds is based on that rule. You're like, okay, does it have a kick snare? Does it have this drum pattern? Does it have this rhythm? Does it have this particular instrument? So that's how you're able to tell the difference. And if none of those fit between that, that's where you get a new sound, you know. It's like this has not been done before, so we have a new sound, now that's the template, then now those are followed from there.
Makadem, is there something like gospel music?
Gospel is not a genre in Kenya. It might be in the US, but not in Kenya. Because music is not language or the text. It's the arrangement. So if you're singing gospel in any other, I mean, if you're singing about God, because that's what gospel is all about, isn't it? And it's raga, or it's reggae, or it's hip-hop, or it's country. I mean, if it's for Christians, they will definitely take it as a gospel song, because depending on what you're saying. But that doesn't make it a genre of music. You know, because most of the gospel music in Kenya is just cuts across. It could be Ohangla, it could be Mugithi, it could be the South African beat that most gospel artists like using, especially the River Road ones. They've really gone South Africa not knowing, and they're doing a lot of... So music is arrangement, it's not language, it's not a text, it's the arrangement.
Thanks for that clarification. I had the last question from here. Would you like to... Okay, it's done. Fine, let me... I'm spoiled for... Okay, wow. Could you make it really, really brief, because we have to cut this short. Let's hear him, and then her.
Hello, I'm Xavier, and I wanted to ask on the issue of bringing the past to the future. To Makadem, what do you think about sampling? And also to Jinku, what have you done about it? How do you do it, rather? Yes, sampling of songs from the past.
Makadem, would you like to go first?
Me, I'm not a producer, and I think I'll leave that to Jinku. He's already doing it. Please explain to him. But it's if you want to hear my opinion on it, yes, that's futuristic.
Yes, sampling is good, but then there's also, like, for example, when I sample, I release the music for free, because at the end of the day, when you sample, you still have to clear. There is this thing known as clearance of samples, and you definitely have to pay your dues to the people who did it before. So I think when you sample, you have to also be very ethical about respecting where it's from, and also paying the dues to the people who did it before. So that's my 2 cents.
Mm-hmm. And the last question from Kamaru here.
My name is Kamaru, a producer DJ. I want to ask, for me, I think identity is a process, and I'm asking, are the Kenyan producers and DJs part of the process? Are they in the process of an identity? Yeah, that's my question.
Labdi, what do you think?
I didn't hear the question. Did you say?
Identity is a process. The Kenyan producers and musicians and DJs, are they part of the process of, for the identity?
I was just telling Jinku I've had the question. You know, the thing is, I have come to terms with the fact that music is not only, like the music caption does not only include like the arrangement of music or singing, or it's like everything. So when you talk about Makadem, he's a brand and he's everything. The identity of Makadem, he's the sound and he's, you understand? So in that respect, I feel musicians and producers definitely, they're moving towards the identity of music. That's what I feel. Or I didn't hear your question properly. Is that okay?
I think my understanding of his question is, are we part of that process? Or rather, what are we doing towards that? And I think it goes back to what I said earlier. I blame it on the producers and I blame it on the artist towards making the biggest beat. And whenever we talk about this issue, it's not about eradicating the other genres of music. No. It's about being known. We need a signature, you know. Yeah, we need a signature, something like if he's sampling out Bang and so many other DJ producers sample it and it becomes big, very soon you'll be that's a Kenyan sound. Because the Congolese took our guitar and they created what they call sukus. And now if you play the Benga guitar globally, they say, oh, are you playing some sukus? So the Benga was stolen. And because we failed to match up, the thing is, the producers have to know what Jinku called their cultural, what did you call cultural what? Yes, you always have.
The DJs have to be vectors of culture.
Yes,
yeah.
They have to know, may I call it political, whereby you know I'm doing it for my country. Any artist, musician is an ambassador at any time. Because I've just come back from Zanzibar. When I went there, they were not looking at me just as Makadem, some musician. They are seeing Kenya, and they put the flag there, Kenya. So, and the DJ also. Now, if you're so good at playing Nigerian music, and then you go to Nigeria, I wonder what you're going to tell them. You're going to put a Kenyan flag there.
Yeah, and play Nigerian music.
And play Nigerian music, because you will be in trouble.
Okay, let's get the last question here, and then...
Okay, I have a question and a comment. The question is, when I listen to Nigerian music, when I listen to the rhythm, it sounds like Tarab so much. So I think the same way they stole our guitar is the same way they have stolen our Tarab sound, and then they've made it Nigerian. I don't know about the rest of the people, but you listen, you'll see. Anyway, talking about originality, I'm glad we are having this conversation because in 2015, I did a concert at the Goethe Institute called Rappercussions. It was rap, poetry, alongside the accompaniment of percussion instruments. And the funny thing is, only the media came. As in, people are looking at the poster, they're like, poetry on percussion, they couldn't get it. So no crowd came, I only performed for the media. So I'm really glad that 3 years down the line we're having this conversation. I really wish I had met my sister then, because I would have found some female instrumentalists. So we'll network after this and see, because right now we're having this conversation, people seem to be understanding the instrumental part of it.
Thank you very much for that. Actually, if I would say something, and I mean, this is part of the closing remarks, is that there's an awakening that is happening, not just in Kenya, but East Africa-wide. There's an awakening that is happening, even beyond East Africa, across Africa. Young Africans are trying to re-identify themselves, to research themselves, and to identify with what is authentic, what is authentic about themselves. So, I mean, we are perhaps catching up with what was happening 10 years ago right now. So we're back to the future. Again, it's still part of that conversation.
Greg, yeah? I think there's something that she said that is very dangerous, and it might explode. What you need to understand that most African beats are the same. They tend to, people moved. And along African coastlines, they tend to have this what we call chakacha-ish beat. The sekem and skeleu is what you're talking about. It has nothing to do with Arab. That is their thing. It tends to be, the Carib, there's also what we have Sega, which is from the reunion. Even Sega looks like Arab and chakacha. So let's clear that. That's not stolen.
So thank you very much. I think I will hold the questions from here, but I will give the microphone to Bakari to give us the closing remarks, especially with what are the 3 key things that, you know, Kenya and East Africa at large could do in order to be able to bridge the gap in, you know, as quickly as possible?
Well, I gave you the examples from the United States, how things are done in the United States and how they tapped into the past and came to this point of now hip-hop music. And I gave you the example of how we tapped into the high life music to create the whole Ghana sound that later Nigeria took some bits of and everything. Originality is a thing. Sometimes you could be so original, you can isolate yourself. Case Ethiopia. Ethiopians make great music. They have many ethnic groups, but they're so original, their music does not bleed beyond their borders and stuff. So you have to create a sound. And we in the 21st century, with our Pioneer controllers, our Newmark mixers, our Technics 1200 turntables, our big mixing boards, our KISS FMs and everything, the DJ and producer are now the people who create the sound. So you produce the sound, we people out here, we find the money, we book you, and we move you all around the United States based on that sound. You're a DJ, you need to wear your flag just as much as a Winter Olympics person or some football team like the Ghana Black Stars and in the World Cup, FIFA World Cup. You need to wear your flag as DJs and stuff. So do your 70, 30%, 70% Kenyan music, Tanzanian music, Ugandan music, Ethiopian music, Djibouti music, South Sudanese music, whatever, and then do your other 30% that cuts across different things, and then you'll be known as a DJ. The DJ and the producer are the key to the 21st century right now.
Thank you very much. A big round of applause for my panel. Jinku on the left,